Here's something really, really special. After Sappho is a novel written by Selby, Wynn, Schwartz, and it's published in the UK by the absolutely wonderful Gallibegger Press. It's very easy for me to get carried away and wax poetic about how wonderful this novel is, so I'm going to start by just explaining what it is. After Sappho is a novel set around the turn of the 20th century, and every person in it is a real historical figure. It's a novelisation of the lives, the web of lives, of multiple great women, artists, writers, actors, philosophers, travellers, women who dared, women who were bored and angry, women who demanded change, women who wanted to do something different, women who came after Sappho. It's a novel told in vignettes. It is not one clear, delineated narrative. It is separated into small chapters, and within those chapters are smaller sub-chapters, each one usually titled after the woman who is the focus within it. And some of these women you will have heard of, like Virginia Woolf. Others you might have heard of but not know much about, and others still you will never have heard of. Many of these women are not lost to history, but certainly not as famous as they should be. And so in one way, Selby Wynn Schwartz is correcting history a little bit by shining a light on women that should be as famous and celebrated as people like Sappho herself and Virginia Woolf. The novel also traces a lot of ground. We begin in Italy, and we probably spend most of our time in Italy, but then we start to move west across Europe into France, England, Ireland. And other characters, other famous men pop up from time to time as well, like Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde has a place in this novel. But time is also very malleable here. We begin around 1880, we'll move up to 1900, and then we'll move back again 10 years. And then forward 5, and then back 5, and then we'll jump to 1910, and then back to 1900. And we move around, dancing around the turn of the 20th century, however the narrative requires us to do so. And this is in order to fit the lives and narratives and timelines of these women neatly together, to show how they are interconnected by their philosophies, their ideas, their work, and of course some of them did know and influence each other as well. Narratively and structure-wise, this is a very, very unique book. It is not non-fiction, but everyone in here lived a life, a real life, and did very important things for the world of art, literature, and for feminism and the rights and lives and experiences of queer women in general. There's so much to say about this book and what it does, but I think the most important thing, and I was actually discussing this with the publisher, is that it provides hope. It's a book that reaches out. You get the sense that there is a hand being projected from the page out to you, and it is offering you comfort, security, a friend. It is a book that demonstrates the power of community amongst women and queer people. It is a book that shows us where we've been, where we originated, what we're moving towards, how life changes us and how we can change life. It's a very, very hopeful book about change and growth and art and beauty and womanhood, feminism, queer rights. It simply looks at these lives, how they influenced one another, how they were influenced by the past, how they were influenced by Sappho, how they changed the world around them, and how they were bored and angry and frustrated by politics, by a lack of rights, by theology, by religion, by patriarchy. But it doesn't get bogged down with aggression and frustration. It is action. This is a book of movement. That's part of the reason why it moves so much from place to place. Partly because these women really did move from place to place, but also because it is about progress, it is about movement, it is about taking steps forward through art, through voice. These are women who are moving from place to place, spreading messages, making art, acting in theatres, writing books, painting pictures. And all the while, change is happening because they are a part of it. Because change requires things like migration, and art, and beauty, and voices. And all of that is here. But because it's separated into little vignettes and there isn't one cohesive narrative, it reads sometimes like a short story collection, even a poetry collection, or a philosophy book. It takes all of these different shapes and forms, and again, it's kind of emblematic of change and growth and progress. The idea that we are moving all of the time from form to form, from idea to idea, thought to thought, musing to musing, constantly. You could read this just as a collection of wonderful things to learn and ideas to sit on and people to meet and places to explore. There are different ways to read and enjoy this, and I think it probably requires multiple readings for that reason. Once you've read it once and you've gotten to know these women and you've gotten to know what they got up to and their experiences and their connections, you then start again. And you could perhaps read it then as more of a cohesive narrative and look at the play of time and place. Fascinating. In terms of its tone, it's also a book that explores a lot of different emotions, as change and growth and art often does and demands of us. There are really, really funny passages here, and there are really, really heartfelt and difficult ones as well. In fact, I'm going to read a little paragraph from towards the end, and it won't spoil anything because this book isn't spoilable, I guess. But there's a bit where men are discussing what exactly a clitoris is, and I don't know how true this is. I don't know if politicians and journalists and men of that time really were confused and asking questions about what exactly a clitoris is. I have no idea. But there's this brilliant passage where it says, "What is a clitoris? The papers wish to know. Is it an unsteadiness in the hand? Is it a trembling in the mouth? Is it an organ unduly excited or overdeveloped? A certain lord was overheard remarking to a fellow at his club, 'I've never heard of this Greek chap clitoris they are all talking of nowadays.'" There are little moments like that all the way through the book that really, really make you laugh. They make you sigh, they might make you exhausted or angry. But again, they make you think, wow, how far we've come? Or not, for some people. There are a lot of moments in here where you will sigh, but almost always you feel inspired and enlightened. You're learning about the lives of women you didn't know exist, and better late than never. You're learning about them now, and they are incredible, wonderful people. The fact that there are people out there who had relationships with people that you have heard of, like Oscar Wilde or Virginia Woolf, and you didn't know that there were these connections out there, these inspirations, these people who they came up against, came to blows with, were inspired by, fell in love with. It's absolutely wild, the amount of research and passion and creativity that all blend together to create something that is hopeful and kind, whimsical, big. It's so big. It's also a really nice length. This is a 250-page novel that has a very consistent pace to it. Constantly. The pace in this book is perfect, and the way that, as I said, it jumps from time to time, place to place, does also allow us to see change as it happens, and that really keeps you invested. If you go back to page 1, when you get to about halfway through, go back to page 1, look at the subject matter, look at the characters that it introduced, the politics of the place and time, late 19th century Italy, and think, okay, we've already seen change. We've already seen art and growth. We've seen female actors on the stage touring the United States dressed as men and playing Hamlet. That's progress from where we began on page 1 with a person just known as X, who was sent to an insane asylum because of the way she dressed and expressed herself in a way that years later would be called tomboyish. The progress that you see just within the pages inspires us to think about how far we've come 100 years since then, how far we haven't come, how far we've regressed, what's left to do. It inspires us to take up the mantle, to take up torches and pitchforks, to take up megaphones and continue to make change and make our voices heard. It inspires us, it is hopeful, it is kind. It shows the effect that Sappho had on these women, the way that Sappho held out a hand through time to guide these women forward, and how they are now doing the same for you as you read this. Hope and kindness and comfort are the order of the day here. This is a book about the beauty of feminism, the beauty of womanhood, the beauty of the female body, the beauty of queerness, the beauty of lesbianism, of gender nonconformity, of exploring your sexuality, your sex, your gender, everything. It is a book about smushing around status quo and twisting it and turning it into something so much more beautiful and bigger than it ever could have been without the power of these women. I could go on and on and on, but at this point I'm just celebrating the book. I find it so elating, so moving, so kind. It makes me think about the change that we can enact, and it makes me look forward to what the future of feminism, the future of queer rights, the future of non-conformity has to offer us, because we've now seen what the past looked like, and the past before that past, and the past that came after that past. What is next? What is happening now that will be talked about in the future? Who will be talked about and why? And could it be you? Could it be me? What can we do? It's absolutely beautiful. There's a moment on page 168 which pretty much sums up everything that I've been describing, everything that I've been feeling. And it says, "Our lives are the lines missing from the fragments. There is the hope of becoming in all our forms and genres. The future of Sappho shall be us." I love this book. It is one of my favourites of this year. I am astonished, amazed, and I can't wait to just go back to the beginning and start it all again. It is moving, it is hopeful, it is inspiring. Please read After Sappho. It's wonderful. Subscribe for books.